Good afternoon, everyone. Congratulations on making it halfway through the semester. I hope everyone's classes are going well. I want to talk a little bit about Module 8 and some of the ideas that were presented. One of the first worksheets that I read was the language learning methodologies. So I found it really interesting, the various forms of methodology with which to approach teaching the second language. But I was curious as to the effectiveness. As I was reading about the grammar translation method, I was kind of scratching my head because it places such a heavy focus on grammar and reading. However, it translates from the native language, so the target language isn't really introduced until you get to direct texts, which are actually somewhat hard, and it involves a lot of that whole word bank kind of association that I feel is really ineffective because you just kind of learn the vocabulary of words, but if you can't contextualize them, then it becomes a lot more difficult. And I think we should have a more rhetorical view, so to speak, of language learning, which I feel like the direct method really offered. The direct method, in which class instruction is done only in the target language, and students are encouraged to learn formulaic phrasing and at least 15 sentences. So I personally feel like the best strategy is a social strategy. So allowing English language learners to be paired with English language speakers creates the best environment for them to learn because they're listening to their fellow peers, and at the same time they're hypothesizing, experimenting, testing their own use of language. And this was really exemplified by page 108 of Tabor in chapter 7 when he was talking about child initiated activities. So in this small paragraph in the book, he was talking about English native speakers and their relationship to English language learners within the classroom, and how they may be a little apprehensive at first to kind of engage, but once the learners demonstrate certain formulaic phrases, they're able to communicate in free play activities, right? So during free play activities, context-based learning happens. So students are able to hear the context with with which their fellow peers are speaking, test these hypotheses, and in a way interact and work with each other, as opposed to a method where we're just kind of working on a word bank. Not to denigrate the importance of a grammar translation method. However, I don't feel like, at least to reach a level of conversational language usage, I don't think that's the most effective method, the grammar translation method. I feel like the direct method in social context works a lot stronger. Ada Campoy, at least from my experience, speaks from a very humanistic and worldly point of view, and I think it outlines a lot of great lesson plans that not only teach students things that apply to the classroom, but overall life skills. So goal setting and purpose was Unit 8. Creating assignments where the students can set small goals, gain confidence, and overall gain more willingness, because confidence, at least in my opinion, equates to willingness to absorb new materials. And Unit 9 was talking about relationships, and I think this is really the meat and potatoes of the book, because it's where we get to see inside of the students, where we get to delve a little bit into their personal life and see how much trust they have with us. And by gauging that, we're also able to understand them better. They understand us, and there's a lot more cohesion within the classroom. So a lot of this week's material was very worldly, humanistic, at least to my perspective, to my understanding, and there's a lot of social aspects involved in language learning that I didn't really see earlier. At least my personal acquisition of a second language was something that I never saw as social. I always saw it as just, something I had to do on a personal level. And it wasn't till I started, thinking back in my memory of all those times where I used the second language in a different context, in the context of social settings, was when I really felt like I was gaining it much more rapidly, as opposed to reading comprehension or writing. Not to say that those aren't important; those are super important skills. But I digress. I hope everybody has an amazing weekend. Midterms have me cooped up on my laptop, and I hope that you don't feel the same way. And take care. Thanks. That's all I got.